matter what, we come together for the good of our constituents, and I'm proud and honored to lead the People's House of the New York State Legislature.
The health and protection of the human beings that live in our districts is our responsibility.
Senator Douglas's words for us today, I quote, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress."
If you want equity to happen, then this is where it happens.
All of us have a responsibility to the greater good.
The House will come to order.
Hello and welcome to Assembly Update. I'm Audrey Pitcher and I'm here today with Assemblymember Jeffrey Dinowitz. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
It's wonderful to be back here.
Excellent. Now, we know that everyone's sort of struggling with budgetary concerns right now. Everyone's struggling to feed their families and, make it through the year. And one of the issues that has been big this year is the issue of tolls and increased tolls in especially the city and the idea of increasing tolls for certain times. Can you talk to us a bit about that and what you've been doing with the Henry Hudson Bridge tolls?
Sure. A few years ago, I was able to negotiate as part of the budget deal a rebate for Bronx people who take the Henry Hudson Bridge. It was 2019, and it was the year that congestion pricing was being discussed and a whole bunch of other issues. And I said, maybe this is the year to try to do something that'll really help people in my district and people in the Bronx. And so the idea was that the Henry Hudson Bridge, which used to be known as the 10-cent bridge, if you can believe that. I don't remember it being 10 cents, but some people do. I remember it being 25 cents, though. The Henry Hudson Bridge goes from the Bronx, the Riverdale portion of the Bronx, into Inwood in Manhattan. And it's a really short bridge. I mean, short, not in terms of height, but in terms of length. And it just irks people, like, why are we paying a toll on this ridiculously short bridge? And so a bulb lit up in my head, and I said, well, why can't we get rid of that toll, at least for Bronx people? So I did some research, and I made the assumption that most people who take the bridge are from Westchester or Connecticut. Nothing against Westchester or Connecticut, of course. So the pitch I made was that by helping the Bronx people, it will not cost a lot of money. And I was correct. And so we negotiated into the budget that starting in the spring of 2020, people from the Bronx, when they take the bridge, they would get an instant rebate. So we don't characterize it as free, but an instant rebate, 100%. And then lo and behold, the pandemic hit, and that delayed it. Why did it delay it? Because the source of the funding, it's called the Attleboro, I never remember the name, Attleboro Transit Fund, we'll say, which is a fee put on certain rides on Ubers and Lyfts and things like that. And it wasn't generating any money. No one was going out. No one was, going into Manhattan. So this program, which I was so excited to have announced, was postponed. Well, this fund has finally been replenished to the point where it's at where it needed to be. And so my bridge proposal, as well as a similar proposal in an area of Queens, it's becoming a reality. And so here's how it works. If you have a passenger car registered in the Bronx and you're a Bronxite and you have an Easy Pass account which has money in it, when you go over the bridge in either direction, your Easy Pass account will be charged and instantly rebated by the same amount, meaning that you end up paying zero. And if there are some people, believe it or not, who go over that bridge a few times a day, there are some people who, let's say, pick up kids from school. They have to bring their child in the morning, back, and then go get the child in the afternoon and go back. That's 4 tolls. It would be zero for those people, as long as they meet the criteria. So when the MTA had told me recently, when they said it's going to take effect, that many people, probably the majority of people, will be automatically enrolled in the program, but that many people will have to do something on the computer themselves I'm one of those unfortunates that have to do that, but it's really not that much trouble. And it takes effect February 3rd. So starting February 3rd, if you're a Bronxite, that means not just my district, but anybody in the Bronx. And there are people in the Bronx, many people who come across the Bronx to go over the Henry Hudson Parkway to go to the west side of Manhattan. So it's not just like a Riverdale thing. It's for anybody in the Bronx. And the other benefit to this is that some people, particularly in my area, they would avoid the toll because they didn't want to pay it. So they would drive into Kingsbridge and Marble Hill. And by this happening, it means people will not do that anymore, which will, eliminate some congestion and some pollution in the Kingsbridge and Marble Hill communities. So it's really a win for a lot of people. And many people, I don't have the number, but hundreds, probably thousands of people in the Bronx use that bridge every day or some days. And if you go over the bridge every day, if you do the math, right, I think the toll right now is $3.18, or maybe they raised it, but it's $3.18. Well, let's say $6 a day times 5 days is 30. That's about $1,500 a year. So if you go over the bridge every day, you're going to save a lot of money. But even if you don't, you might just go over the bridge a few times a week or once in a while, go to the doctor's, go to the theater or something. You're going to save a lot of money. But it's only for Bronx people. Now, I've been asked the question, well, I live in the Bronx, but my car's registered upstate. Sorry. If you live in the Bronx, your car is not supposed to be registered upstate, and I won't even characterize essentially what that is, but the car has to be a passenger car registered in the Bronx. You got to be a Bronx resident and have an Easy Pass account. And if you do that, you're going to save a lot of money. So starting February 3rd, now today, that when we're taping this is January, don't tell me, today's Wednesday, 17th. So in about a little 2.5 weeks, this will take effect. People are very happy about it. So if I accomplish nothing else, and I've accomplished a whole bunch of things, I think this is really a very great thing for people in our community. So I'm very pleased about it, and I'm grateful that the governor and the MTA are on board with this, and it's going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, this sounds like a victory for the Bronx and also for the surrounding areas, since there'll be decreasing congestion and pollution due to people not traveling out of their way.
Right, absolutely.
Can you talk a bit about, we just saw the governor's budget proposal. Can you talk a bit about what you're looking to push through in this year's budget, or any priorities you're looking forward to getting to?
The governor announced a budget, I believe it was about $233 billion. It's funny, every year the newspaper says, any newspaper, it's the largest budget ever. Of course it's the largest budget ever. Every year it's going to be the largest budget ever unless there are cuts. I don't remember in all my years in the Assembly that one budget was ever smaller than the one before it. They grow, if for no other reason than because of inflation. Even when inflation was lower and it's getting low again, there was still inflation. So when the newspapers say it's the largest budget ever, that's very shallow reporting. But in any case, although true, so $233 billion. One of the highlights she emphasized was that it's going to provide over $2 billion to New York City to deal with the issue of the arrival of a large number of migrants from other countries. And that is much needed money, because right now New York City has had to really bear almost the entire cost of a situation that is really a national situation. It's not something the city or even the state should be responsible for. But at the moment, I'm very happy if the state comes up with money for the city. That's really important. I mean, the mayor has, I don't know what the exact number is, because the mayor has mentioned different numbers at different times, but it's definitely in the billions. It's definitely in the billions, and it's a serious issue that we have to contend with. So that's one piece. Money for schools, for education, is going to increase. I think the number was 2%, if I remember correctly. We're going to get everything in writing in our what we call the Yellow Book, which will be basically a breakdown of her proposal. We'll be getting that on Monday. But there is an increase in school aid, and there's going to be increases in other areas that we care about, higher education, healthcare, Medicaid, just to name a few examples. We also have a huge concern this year over housing. Between her state of the state and her budget, and this is something that I have to review, I want to see what she intends to do for housing. She claims we need to build 500,000 new units of housing over a specified period of time. I'm not sure that's the correct number. I know the real estate and developer community says we keep saying that. Of course, it's in their economic interest to say that, but there's no question that we do need more housing. I don't personally believe that building more housing is going to necessarily lower rents, because although the advocates, the developers and others like to say that they believe in the market, they don't always believe in the market when they want taxpayer handouts, such as 421A program, which lapsed some time ago. So we have to make a determination during the budget negotiations, what, if anything, we can do to increase housing. But I've always also maintained that there are tens of thousands of empty units of housing in New York City, particularly rent-regulated housing. And those units are being kept empty deliberately, contributing to this housing crisis. So don't say we need this many units of new housing when we have a lot of empties right now. We have to look at all the factors. So yes, we need to build some more housing. I would love to see us replicate the Mitchell-Lama program. We need to, though those empty units need to be filled, but just as important as building new units of housing, we have to preserve housing that we already have, particularly affordable housing. And one of the things that I'm most concerned about is that in my own district, we have some affordable housing communities, such as the amalgamated houses, which is going through a terrible financial crisis, and the state needs to cough up money to help them to keep the amalgamated viable. And we also have some Mitchell-Lama buildings, which the amalgamated is very similar to a Mitchell-Lama. Like we have buildings like Cannon Heights and Kingsbridge Arms and others that also have severe financial issues. And we have an obligation to make sure that those buildings, those co-ops, remain viable. Those are affordable housing co-ops. They're not, they're not for the wealthy. They're for middle class. They're for working class. It's affordable housing, as is the amalgamated. And we have to keep those units of housing on the market. We have to keep them available for people. And so we have some work to do with respect to that. So housing, very important, but I think we shouldn't be steamrolled into doing something that may not be the best thing. We have to do the smart things, which includes developing new units of housing. So that's part of our mission, both in the budget and in the legislative session.
Absolutely. Well, it seems like you clearly have some important work ahead of you with this budget season. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time when hopefully we can discuss the budget in a bit more depth.
Okay, thank you.